Hey guys, it's James W. Pickering here, and I want to tell you something exciting as I thought I would talk about the Star Wars movies, the 9 episodic ones. So, in this video, I think I would just talk about the prequel trilogy, so we're going to go chronologically. So, yeah, I mean, let's start off with Phantom Menace because, in 1999, there hadn't been a Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi. And, it had been 16 years. Uh, the funny thing is that the hype for Phantom Menace was so through the roof. I mean, there were stories about how people would go to the movie theater to see movies like Meet Joe Black or The Waterboy, just hoping they would see the trailer for Phantom Menace, and then they would just march out before the movie even began. But anyways, like Phantom Menace, I'll be honest here. I watched the originals first and then the prequels next. I, for the first time, I actually never really cared about Phantom Menace, and I know there's a lot of people who do. Um, you know, it felt very weird. If you watch the originals, there's a lot of sets built, in the Death Star and all that. And here there's like all this like underwater cities of the Gungans and all that. Yeah, it was strange. Although nowadays, I mean, I don't hate Phantom Menace. I actually do kind of like it. Uh, it's not a perfect movie, but I mean, ever since the sequels came out, which I'll get to later, I can appreciate it and see what George Lucas was doing at the time. Star Wars was his baby, and like Return of the Jedi was kind of more of a definitive ending for the Star Wars saga. So, I guess he thought he would start over before the events of Star Wars. Um, I mean, there are still some good, like, location shootings within Phantom Menace. Like, they went to Tunisia to film, and even in the forests of England and that Caserta Palace in Italy, which I give props to. The biggest gripe I have with this movie is just that the pacing of it is not exactly upbeat. It's pretty slow. And you're just kind of wondering, like, when is this ever gonna get into higher gear, if you know what I mean? Because of all the tax and the Trade Federation stuff, it's like, no thank you. Although it still does have the pod racing scene, and then also the fight with Darth Maul, which is to me the best Star Wars lightsaber fight ever in all the movies. So that's definitely something to look forward to. And then Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor I think are quite good as Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. And like, the crazy thing is, like, Jar Jar never really annoyed me, but like, I can tell as an adult now that Jar Jar was just meant as like a campy, like, merchandise figure for kids. you know I mean, the funny thing also is about Phantom Menace is that how it inspired all those fan edits, including the Phantom edit where they just took out Jar Jar Binks from the movie. And I think there was another one where it made him smarter. But yeah, Attack of the Clones, I'll be honest and say I think it's actually the weakest of, like, the prequels. I mean, I would even say the weakest of the Lucas 6, the hexology, which is the prequels and originals. And well, until Last Jedi, this was the weakest Star Wars movie in my book. Because of all the love scenes between Anakin and Padme and the dialogue that Anakin says. It's just like, who says this? Although I guess if to be fair, it's because Anakin was like a Jedi who had no romance and was kind of celibate. So that's why I guess you can say it was a bit awkward in the dialogue delivery. You gotta love all those memes about the sand. Oh god. But I will say, watching Attack of the Clones again, I do think that Obi-Wan's side of the story is a lot cooler, where he goes to Kamino and he finds that all the clones of Boba Fett's dad, Jango Fett, are being made, and they eventually become stormtroopers. And the funny thing is, I remember when Clones came out back in '02, a lot of people were saying that this kind of felt like Empire Strikes Back, but upside down. But it's not as good as Empire. But again, I mean, I will say, like, the opening speeder chase when Anakin and Obi-Wan chased that shape-shifting bounty hunter. I think that's an exciting scene to watch, even though the whole scenario around it doesn't make sense. Like, why does Jango Fett need to get the shapeshifter girl to do his deed for him? Like, couldn't he just do it himself with this poisonous centipedes? And yeah, I do like the part where Obi-Wan and Jango fight in the rain. That's also a pretty nice action scene. And even though there is a lot of CGI, I do think that the Colosseum towards the end, where all the Jedi and the robots fight, and then when the stormtroopers come by and they save all the Jedi and they fly away, and then Anakin and Obi-Wan have to go fight Dooku, and then of course it doesn't end well for them, and then Yoda comes in and he busts out a lightsaber. And the funny thing is, for a really long time, I didn't like the idea of Yoda fighting with a lightsaber. I thought it was kind of silly. But I did, again, rewatching both the prequels and originals, like a fan theory. I think that in Empire, when Yoda says his ally is the Force, I think it's because he learns his experience. He actually learns from his experiences in both the events of Clones and Sith. So, it is kind of funny seeing Yoda jumping up and down and fighting Count Dooku with his lightsaber. But again, while I don't mind it nowadays, it does have a lot of weaknesses, again, with the dialogue and a lot of the CGI in it. Although I do like how they went back to the hotel in Tunisia that was used for Star Wars, where Luke's home was, and they actually refilmed scenes there in Attack of the Clones when Anakin meets young Owen and Beru. So that's a plus. And then for Revenge of the Sith, I think this one is easily the best out of the prequel trilogy. I mean, there are some people who think Phantom Menace is, and for years I'm like, why would you like Phantom Menace? I guess it's because of the hype it got and all the toys and merch that came out for it. But I think Revenge of the Sith, like, it does a pretty good job at connecting the dots from 1 and 2 to 4, 5, and 6. I mean, I will say, like, the opening space battle is amazing. And also when Obi-Wan and Anakin, when they free Palpatine from both Count Dooku and General Grievous, is also pretty exciting. Oh, and then also when they land Grievous's ship in Coruscant. I do like when it breaks in half and he says, we're still flying half a ship. Yeah, and then also, admittedly, the movie does kind of, after the opening space battle, it does kind of slow down. But I do like the opera scene where Palpatine tells Anakin about Darth Plagueis. That was pretty cool. And then also, it does pick up when Obi-Wan goes to fight General Grievous. It is a bit kind of blinding when Grievous does the propeller with his lightsabers. But it is kind of funny and cool how they chase each other throughout, was it Utapau? And then Obi-Wan just winds up killing him with the gun. And then also Anakin turns to the dark side, and then Mace Windu and the gang, they fail miserably in trying to arrest Palpatine. And I do find it pretty comical now when Palpatine shoots lightning at Mace Windu, and then like Anakin like cuts Windu's hand off. Yeah, good stuff. I mean, also another thing for me is that Revenge of the Sith was the first Star Wars movie I actually saw in theaters, believe it or not. And then, yeah, and I do like the part where like Order 66 happens and all the Jedi die, and then, you know, Anakin, who is now Vader, he carries out the massacre in the Jedi Temple, and then eventually Obi-Wan and Yoda, they go back to the temple and they find out it's Vader and Palpatine that are responsible for this, and then they split up, and then Vader and Obi-Wan have that admittedly pretty long fight in Mustafar, and then Yoda and Palpatine, they have the fight in the Senate, and I do kind of find it funny how Palpatine and Yoda basically just destroyed the Senate as they're just using the Force to push all the Senate chairs around, which is funny but also cool. And I actually kind of like Yoda and Palpatine's fight more compared to the fight between Vader and Obi-Wan. But I mean, it does get to an ending when Obi-Wan says, "It's over, Anakin, I have the high ground," and all the memes that have come out of that. And then Obi-Wan cuts off Vader's legs and his left arm, and then he gets burnt up. And then he also takes Vader's lightsaber, which he gives to Luke in Star Wars, and it explains why he says, "Your father wanted you to have this when you're old enough. It's your father's lightsaber." Yeah. And then, even though it's a little corny when Padme gives birth to Luke and Leia, and then she dies, I don't know, I guess the broken heart or the Force wasn't strong with her. But I do think Revenge of the Sith still kicks ass all these years later, since 2005, and to me it is my favorite of the prequels. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Star Wars prequels, and next time I will talk about the original trilogy. Take care.